Narcos, the popular Netflix adaptation, is a story based around the infamous drug lord Pablo Escobar. This video would like to focus on one other player, Carlos Leder, played by Juan Reidinger in the show. Even though the man does not have much of a role in the show, stick around till the end of the video and we'll show you why he's important. Carlos Leder, also known as Crazy Charlie by most people, was a German-Colombian drug lord born in September 1949 in the Armenia district of Colombia. He was most infamously known for his many ventures that showed his entrepreneurial drive, such as co-founding the Medellin cartel and also creating a neo-Nazi political party that was known as the National Latin Movement. Leder was known to be a fan of both the Beatles as well as Nazi leader Adolf Hitler. He also openly opposed the extradition treaty that Colombia had signed with the United States. Leder was also a founding member of the Muerte a Secuestradores, more commonly known as MAS, a paramilitary group that was created for the purpose of defending family members of people in the cartel from being kidnapped by the M19 guerrilla movement. In November 1981, Leder was kidnapped by this movement, and although he managed to escape, he was still shot in the leg. Carlos Leder is considered to be one of the most important drug kingpins from Colombia, and was an integral part of both MAS as well as the Medellin cartel. His arrest and eventual prosecution is considered to be one of the Drug Enforcement Agency's biggest achievements to date. His father, Klaus Wilhelm Leder, was a German national and patriot who had immigrated to Colombia in the late 1920s. He was an engineer by profession, and after marrying Helena Rivas, the daughter of a Colombian jeweler, he'd already established himself as a civil engineer in Colombia, working on multiple projects and buildings. He was known for working on some unique projects for that time and location, as the buildings that he worked on were quite luxurious and had elevators, something that was incredibly uncommon for Colombia. After Klaus had considered himself to be properly integrated into Colombian society, he changed his first name to Guillermo, which he thought would help him even better to blend into the Colombian background. Together, the husband and wife had started a range of businesses, and also ran an inn that was extremely popular in Colombia at that time. However, the inn had then received too much popularity, and in the 1940s it was suspected that the inn was used as a meeting spot for the National Socialist movement to meet. In short, the family was accused of promoting Nazi actions through their wealth and influence. An investigation had therefore been launched. However, the accusations did not hold up, and none of the investigations actually led anywhere. However, it is interesting to note that the children of the couple grew up with their own copies of Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, and Carlos had been openly known to idolize the Nazi dictator. So it is possible that the accusations and the investigation had some merit to it. Carlos was the third of 4 children, and up till his parents' divorce about the time he was 15, he used to live in Pension Alemana. When his parents split up, the 15-year-old drug lord-to-be had moved to New York with his mother. Life in America. When Carlos and his siblings had moved to America with their mother, she'd planned for them to become incredible industry men like their father and grandfather. She wanted them to start their own businesses so that they too could be successful and play an important role in society. However, Carlos did not agree with this way of living, and instead, he'd chosen to leave school early in order to kickstart his criminal career. Carlos had begun stealing and smuggling cars across the US border towards Canada and Colombia. He used to steal the cars, sell them, use the money to buy marijuana, sell that too. In a way, he was pretty successful even at a very young age. When the cars were smuggled to Colombia, Carlos used to hand them over to his brother, who had a car dealership of his own, who then used to sell the cars forward. In 1973, things had gone south. On his way to sell cars to his dealer in South America, Carlos was arrested by the police. He was then sent very briefly to the Danbury police, where he'd been detained. Carlos's cellmate was the one and only George Jung, the infamous marijuana smuggler. Jung is also the person on who the biopic Blow is based, and in the movie, he was played by Johnny Depp. When the two smugglers were spending time together in the cell, they started opening up, and a friendship started blossoming. Carlos began calling Jung El Americano, instead of the usual slang that most Latin Americans use for Americans. Carlos opened up to Young and made him known about his plan to smuggle cocaine through the Colombian border into America. Young, who was aware of the mass market that was available in America, calculated that Carlos could sell that amount of cocaine for around $60,000. However, Young was completely convinced of the idea when he came to know that the same amount of cocaine can be made in Colombia for only $4,000. Thinking about the fact that he could be a millionaire in no time, Young offered his services to Carlos and taught him what he knew about smuggling drugs in through the border. And he knew a lot. Young later called this interaction a match made in heaven. When they were both released from Danbury in the 70s, they went straight to Colombia together, where they met the one and only Pablo Escobar. The rise of an empire. Leder and Young made incredible amounts of money by using the Caribbean islands and a private jet as the major resource in their operations. They used low air traffic and the plane's ability to slip under the radar to make their deals. The success of this operation led Leder to become closer to Escobar and allowed him to become one of the founding fathers of the cartel. Leder then started going one step further, and he began taking over a private island in the Bahamas known as Norman Cay, and started using that island as a personal headquarters for his operations. He had bribed officials, threatened residents, and used actual violence in order to get what he wanted, and that was complete control of the island. Due to the island's geographic location and secrecy, it was perfect for the reason of smuggling drugs to the United States. Eventually, using abandoned airstrips in the US, Leder was able to smuggle in cocaine through various states. It's estimated that every hour, Leder used to smuggle in 2,000 to 3,000 kilograms of cocaine to the United States. This was also where the Leder and Young partnership began to crumble. Leder was known to have a bad temperament and had this undying need to become wealthy. This had put Young off, and he had started to go his separate ways. In Norman's Cay, Leder had become so wealthy that he had enough money to enlist a fleet of bodyguards and attack dogs who used to protect him and his island. The island was more than just a headquarters for the major drug operation. Leder made it into a fortress for himself and threw the most extravagant of parties for him and his other criminal friends. The fall of the empire. The party eventually had to come to an end, as the authorities in the Bahamas could not ignore the massive amount of drug trafficking operations happening on their ground for long. With the help of the DEA, authorities stormed the headquarters and Leder had to flee. Leder was sentenced to life plus an additional 135 years in prison, and eventually the Medellin cartel broke up. Leder was then released early in June 2020 when he testified against the Panama director Manuel Noriega. After his release, he then went to Germany, where he's getting treated for his prostate cancer. That's all for this video, folks. Let us know what you thought about the life of the drug lord Carlos Leder. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel. See you next time.